Hello, everyone. I would like to introduce today's speaker. Hong Chin has been as part of the Wood Group, and she's been working in the environmental field, especially as it relates to air emissions and greenhouse gas for more than 10 years. She has led the environmental management application team for many major U.S. and international clients, including BP, Dow, Marathon, Arkema, and many others. She provides the experience and expertise in air emissions data compliance, greenhouse gas compliance, and develops sustainability solutions for customers per the US EPA 40 CFR 60, US EPA Subpart C, US EPA Subpart Y, and US EPA Subpart W. Today, she's going to be speaking on carbon tracking towards net zero goals. So I'm going to pass this over to Hong Chin. One of the things, there is a sign-in sheet kind of on each row to the side, so I can come help pass that out. Just if you can make sure you do sign in, please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'll go past that. So today, what I really want to talk about is, these days, the GHG, the carbon, all that scope 1 to scope 3 is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. All these buzzword is like so popular, everyone is talking about. So I just kind of want to give you guys, or maybe exchange some of the understanding of what this is about and what's a big impact to us, and then how we can help and some of the case study. So we know there are a lot of the rules, compliance requirements are coming in, and then, this kind of mimic the every environmental, I don't know you guys role in this, but I know this is a very reflective image of environmental personnel, like who's handling all kinds of rules. Is like, I can't keep up with all these rules, the requirements, emission in this respect, that respect. If you are in this field, you're probably very familiar with all these, what I have on this slide, the GHG protocol, the IPCC, the EPA ones, and OGMP 2. And then now we know that SEC is also requesting that everyone, to report their climate change risk related, business operations, the impact, and how do you want to kind of your planned action towards reduction. So this is a data map that I gathered from the World Bank for 2021. So of this day, there are 65 carbon pricing initiatives already implemented across different countries, different cities. There are 45, I guess, the national jurisdiction that's including our US, because EPA is also doing something, the SEC is also doing something. So all these trading, the parties who are included in these trading program, that accounts for 21.5% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So generally speaking, there are two ways of you kind of baseline your GHG, or you have to baseline is, there's a approach of the tax, you get the carbon tax or carbon credit. Basically you trade, how much I'm allowed to, and then the other one maybe they have less emission, then we can trade by certain pricing or certain unit of greenhouse gas per ton. And there's another one which is actually by money, and then there is in EU they started. I've been working with our colleagues in UK. They already started with like a carbon shadow cost of 25 euros per ton, and then 25 pounds per ton. And then there's this EU, actually this EU CEO, I forgot his real title, but he's saying that by 2030, we should see that in terms of 50 euro to 100 euros per greenhouse CO2e, tons of CO2e. So that leaves, and then the other thing is just within the US, this is by 2017, about 85% of the S&P 500 companies are already reporting these greenhouse gas emission. So looking at the overall, where do we stand? What is your score? And the score, I don't know if you heard of this term, that's basically stands for the screen, the capture, the offset, the reduce, and evaluate. So this image is kind of small. I don't know if you can see this. So if I look at, can you see my mouse? So if I look at the assess in the middle part, where you see substitute, capture, offset, and reduce, everything starts from you have to have your baseline. Then you know what to do. The substitute, yes, everyone, it's kind of obvious that you basically want to substitute your fuel usage to a certain, less intensive energy, like your, maybe different wind power or, a solar, different type of energy driven. And the capture, including, your emission control, their different carbon capture and storage technology these days. And the offset, the offset is you include inside within your whole corporate holistic view, then you can do certain things on certain areas, certain assets to offset the other assets greenhouse gas emission. The reduce is kind of obvious that you based on what you find, then you do certain actions. However, all of these include a basic fundamental step is you have to know where you are. So baseline setting is kind of crucial. And then the final one of this four is evaluate. And evaluate is not just like the initial step of, okay, where are we and how do we do from here? Evaluate should be a continuous method, continuous approach that you constantly looking at, that you monitor that, and where the big gap is, where you're far behind of not up to the standard. And so this is based on the GHG protocol. They want us to follow this scope 1, scope 2 emission. Basically, this is also the same guidelines if you are to report the SEC emissions. So the scope 1, scope 2 is really what most of the industry and private sectors are focusing right now, which is your direct emission from your company for activity. And then generally speaking, I know the 4C is kind of targeting on the oil and gas industry. So generally speaking, we're looking at the combustion and fugitive. Those are the main two categories that emit the most, right? So you know how to set where to set boundary and focusing on where to reduce, and the report will say it's self-explanatory. The quickest way of doing, once you get your baseline, then kind of, okay, what are the options? And here we propose that simply, either use the renewable energy to do the carbon credits to benefit from it. I don't need to go in detail. And the scope 2 indirect is really kind of like your purchase electricity or that type of activities. So where can technology help? So our focus is still knowing where you are, be able to analyze different scenario analysis, analyze where you want to spend your effort the most, and then come up with the action plan. Without the baseline, you can look at, we'll just do a simple renewable energy replacement. That doesn't tell you much. You don't necessarily get a big picture of, and give you a strategy, a long-term strategy. You only finish the step one. Evaluate should be all the circle around you. You do that all the time continuously. And then one key thing come to your mind would be when you report or you try to baseline that is, do you know, okay, your data basically. Where do you get your data? How good is the data? Can I trust my data? And so I'm gonna skip the scope 3 just because I think most of people here are more related with the scope and scope 2. So we believe that who gets measured gets managed. So then let's talk about the approach that we propose here is, that involves all these little squares, or I don't know what the shape you call it, but basically all these activities around your platform. Of course, here we provide the Envision as a solution, but you can, of course, look somewhere else. But the approach should be similar, which is you first, you gather your data, you look at you understand the rule requirement, understand where we apply to, what is applicable to us, and that you identify all the emission source that's subject to the requirement. And then you categorize data that involves data mapping. Some of the data may be, in scope 1 or in fugitive or in combustion. That I'm talking about really narrowed down to different, sectors. But some other subsectors we've also done project with may not be just like, a single gear or single, compressor or single flare. It could be some other things, but really understanding your data, map them to different categories, and then you come to this point, which is baseline. Now, what is baseline? What does that entail? Basically, you have to get the data automatically. Nowadays, everyone knows that digital is the way to go. You can't just still go back to this Excel spreadsheet because we're talking about constantly evaluating. We're not talking about, we just do this one time. So that involves your data collection has to be automated. That involves your calculation is also up to the same speed, your real time. Some of them may not need real time, different requirements applies here, but I'm just talking about, generally speaking, that involves your data are coming in automatically, the calculation are done automatically, and then you monitor. What does a monitor mean? Monitor means, okay, you calculate certain result, then you have to compare what can you do. You have certain permit limit, or you have certain guidelines, you should not violate or exceed certain thing. And when it comes to maybe approaching range, you get notified. There are certain things you can do. There are certain action you can set and pass it down to the corresponding personnel. That's what the monitor means. And then overall, I think we all, especially at the upper management and the board, what they want really to see is a scenario analysis. Okay, so we know we know this is how much we have emitted 2017. And if I want to cut down by 35%, where do we go? Okay, so here's the analytics that that drives that decision. Based on possible scenarios, there's no one just straightforward method like, oh, reduce all your, the energy to renewable. That's not possible. We all live in a world of restrained, resources, right? So this is where the scenario analysis will really help you is identify what's the optimal solution in terms of the process, in terms of the cost. And we recently did a study for a water group also in UK for this greenhouse gas emission. And initially, they really just want to see where we are baselining. And then what they find out is really it's the energy that they didn't think that the energy saving cost was kind of standing out unexpectedly, because what they found out is supposed to be pumped, it take in turn, you know, that operating, but for some reason the operations did not happen as planned that take in turn, but there is a huge overlap of time that they both were running and they both were consuming energy and a lot of emissions. All that stuff is related. So by doing this scenario analysis, you can actually discover a lot of things you didn't know, you know, just looking at the data. And then it's the final step, which is carbon reduction, based on your scenario analysis, of course, based on what you can do. And you can do phased approach, you can do one-time capital, doesn't matter. But generally speaking, this should be a roadmap for everybody who is you know, needs to do the greenhouse gas emission reporting. So how we can help from Wood, we have offered the Envision, which is a platform. We have done the air mission before. We are moving on to we have done the greenhouse gas emission. We are also moving on to the overall sustainability, which is more than just the greenhouse gas emission. We are looking for, you'll see the case study in the following slides. So the functionality involves the data connectors. You have to, so when I talked about, you know, the data should come in automatically, this is one of the features embedded in our system, that we have real-time data connector, we have I don't know if you guys know about Historian. Most of the companies have dealing with this, have either Pi or, you know, IP21 as a Historian, basically time series data. We can do that. We can also handle the, you know, relational database, so or Excel. So basically the data should be coming in, feeding into the system, and then we do data filtering, data validation. Here, I really want to kind of emphasize a little bit. So most of the time, people struggle with data. Data is essential to your report quality. So if you think about it, anything can be done on Excel. Right? You have a piece of data, you follow a certain formula, there you go, your result is there. But can I trust that data is the problem. Because when you're talking about GHG, subpart W, I don't know if anyone has experienced that, that involves data from so many places, from your, right? From your team on those event log, from your equipment inventory, from your production accounting system, all that stuff needs to be combined. And one says one language, the other says a different one. And not only they say different terminology, they also do not agree with each other. The wells team said, I've already plugged the well. And the other one said, well, there's still flow, you know, by the production accounting. So that's where you need to really take a look at the quality of the data and which one do we go? And if we're talking about like 100 wells, yes, environmental personnel probably be okay with it. But if we're talking about more than that, every year you struggle with all these different spreadsheets, that's gonna be no fun. As a matter of fact, I was talking to one of the major gas company, and the person and the context told me that we're supposed to get to the net zero by 2030. But right now, I feel like we're increasing the emission, not reducing, just because there's no baseline. Because our last year report, I can't trust that data. That's the problem. So that here, we are trying to say, okay, we are not only just doing the data import, we are also doing the data validation for you. With that assured data, then you can see, you can build a calculation, you can do the dashboard presenting all kinds of analytics to you, and also the logging of the events. So that's, and also the workflow. So we talked about, you know, this process should be a continuous process. So following that approach, you will get more clear and a clear picture of each year and knowing where to set target, what action you need to take. So I think I want to, so just quickly, I really want to focus more time on the case study. So this is based on the UN ESG goals. They have categorized different, like 13 goals. And so we did our study. You'll see those numbers show on the case study where it says, okay, well, 9 is for industry, 11 sustainable cities and all that, climate action, 13. So Emission is a platform. So I told you about, we handle the downstream, we handle the onshore, the upstream, but the concept is the same. And your data source may not be the standard data source, but that's where we come in, is we help kind of plug in, how do we get your data into the system so that we can do more analysis, so that we can do more monitoring for you. So I think I've already touched on this, the warnings analytics. So and I have examples for this, so I'm not going to spend time on just one quick thing to point out. So the data that we handle, because it's automated, so you always get the data, the last received one, it doesn't have the gap. And so the other thing is we can go back into history. If you miss something of the current, there is a mechanism we can get a replay, we can get your old data back and do a replay and be able to compare or report. All right, so the use case, this is one of the world's largest chemicals complex. By the way, if you're curious, you can use the same word to do wiki and you know which company that is. Okay, so this is a real-time management of emission reporting and optimization. They have 26 facilities. By using the Envision, basically we did the air emission on the VOC, and also the greenhouse gas emissions. They have the system of, they previously were using some of the Excel spreadsheet, but because of the volume of the data, there's just doesn't make sense to go, manual exercise to help the reporting. And so the reporting was done automatically. We have the inbuilt already reporting template. They can just, we basically plug in the data that we calculated and from the placeholder, and then be able to do the environmental monitoring and reporting. The carbon footprint is also on their dashboard. The other one is the top 3 chemical producers. This is, we cover about 300 emission sources from fair, cooling tower, heater, TOX. And this is per the US EPA 40 air emission and the GHG. This is the one subpart C. So we did the subpart C GHG reporting for them. Another one is a refinery. this is, so they comply to subpart C and subpart Y. One thing I put a verbiage, a direct quote from the customer, so that by using this Envision, they have reduced the excess excess emission by how many? The duration by 500 hours, which is pretty significant, I should say. So that's their internal protocol communication, and they shared with us, and just to kind of like give us applaud, helping them, this is great. So another one, this is one of the world's 7 oil and gas super majors. We basically had a team sit there on site, develop a solution for them for the whole EPA GHG subpart W, because this is the onshore one. And then so the solution overall, previously we have 5 to 7 people of the team sitting there a whole year trying to clean up the data. And now with this solution, after we left, there's really none of us. This is an automated solution sitting within their perimeter. And then they basically every month before, just a month before the GHG, I believe it was like April or March, sometime there. Yeah, that's the reporting due that month. People just click on that, do data collection, do validation, do reporting, that's all. So that's what we do. And now here is a kind of anomaly example of a government using this. This is a government in Saudi, I think. Yeah, so they actually have, they are one of the environmental regulator. So they want people start doing the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emission reporting. And so they asked us to provide a platform. So we built a new system for all the industry users that are under their umbrella to, report by the drop-down list of those scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, and be able to present that to do the dashboards. Okay, so quickly the examples. This is one of the refinery example that I was talking about. So as you can tell, what this consists of is you can tell within this year, you can get this year where you are, you can do the per unit, you can and then year to year trend where you are on the yearly, emission. And the most popular feature is you can rank where the biggest emitter is. So you can tell this on the bottom, the FCCU has the most emission. And then you can tell on the right of it, you can actually click and do a more drill down analysis on which month, which day it has a lot of spikes, and then to be able to see where the operations can improve or something else need to be improved, right? So this is just one summary dashboard of this. I think this is a refiner one. And the other one is, by the way, so that one is really just based on what we have, analysis of, emission based on the data we can get. And now we're talking about the scenario analysis. So we can have all these emission dashboard, right? Just like the previous one, you can show all these number, you can show a historical trend where you are on emission. And then we're talking about, okay, we can do a certain process monitoring, like, okay, during this time, which ones are running, what process they're doing, and then be able to correlate when there's an overlap that the emission occurs bigger and your process at what parameters that increase. So, and this is just one showing the compressor performance monitoring. So basically we have within which we have not just environmental monitoring, we have also the simulator. So it can go in and integrate it and do your scenario analysis more on the process and operations perspective. Like this morning, I was in a flare methane emission, and they talk about how do you decrease the flare methane emission by, looking at your combustion efficiency, because there is the typical formula of the flare carbon emission, methane emission is driven by your flow rate, the combustion efficiency, I'm sorry, carbon concentration and the destruction efficiency. And those two are all related. And if you go knowing these are the things or the variables and you can tweak to get the emission down, why not, right? This is a scenario analysis I think would be much more valuable than just looking at the data, know where you are. But first of all, of course, we have to get the baseline. And that's the gist. The baseline, then you can go on to your next step and do analysis. And this is the example of, from the guideline of GHG protocol that you do by industry, by sector, by year, you can come up with different analysis of scope 1, scope 2, indirect, direct. All these are, so all these are, I was a little sorry that I couldn't really demo you with the live system, but if you're interested, do contact me or Subhash over there. We can arrange certain demo system for you to go over. But there are a lot of examples. And so really, I don't think I covered enough, but I just want to give you kind of overview of the spectrum that we are dealing with, from oil and gas companies to regulator, to even water group company. All these to us is the methodology, the platform, the solution concept that we are providing. Rest of it is just implementation. All right, any questions? Okay.
I had a question about you show different emission sources